Yeah, he said, it's just,
7?
everybody's got the same complaint.
She likes the challenge.
Really wishful thinking. 7:30 maybe.
It's Ragnar. Come on, let's go.
Pen.
Good evening. Welcome to the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting of April 12th. And we will call the meeting to order at 6:32. And the first order of business is approval of the March 22nd, 2018 minutes. Can I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. We move on to public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment? Mr. Wilson, you're not a public comment. Hello.
Good evening. My name is Mark Wilson. I'm the principal of Monomoy Middle School, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the school community this evening. I'm somewhat astounded that I actually have to be here before you tonight, but I'm going to speak to something that is very dear to the school and actually reflects the difference between what makes our school ordinary and what makes it extraordinary. For those of you who have driven by our school property lately, you see a sign out front. It says it's not busy on the if we go the extra mile, it's never crowded. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little bit extra. And I'm going to quote a little bit from our school improvement plan and share a few of the extra things we're doing in our building. One of the things on school culture in our school improvement plan is to create defining moments in our middle school experience. There's an action step there. It says to pursue unusual opportunities, field trips, special events, unique happenings that help shape and define the middle school experience. I want to talk about the unique happenings that happen in our building. There are things that happen outside of our school day, none of which are funded by the school budget, and all of which are examples of going the extra mile and the things that make our school extraordinary. Some examples that some of you have attended already are Beach and Bonfire Night on a Friday night, where we open up at Beach and Harwich and have a chance to have the whole community come together and gather as a community. An evening of inspiration on Friday night in January. We took struggling students and invited them to an afternoon evening. We did leadership activities. We had a dinner. We helped them with their homework as the quarter ended up. And they left with cheers and feeling inspired by the work they accomplished late on a Friday night. Winter sledding and slices. We invited everyone on a national holiday to come to the middle school on MLK Day for sledding on our back hill and for slices of pizza and hot chocolate. This coming June, we have a Science Writers Retreat where students will participate in a weekend of opportunity to be out in nature and do some writing. They'll be with lots of staff members at a local camp. They'll spend a great time together bonding and learning about Sole Source Aquifer. And then 2 travel opportunities that we provide to our students that are unique to the middle school. One to Puerto Rico that we had tried to get going, but the weather obviously didn't help in getting that thing flying. And this past weekend, a trip to Washington, D.C., where about 70 of our students took advantage of this travel opportunity to travel down with our chaperones to Washington. Neither of those trips are class trips or field trips. And all of those things go way beyond the ordinary and what make our school kind of a really special place and make me very proud. All of those events are volunteer run. They're fueled by the goodwill and enthusiasm and belief of our teachers and our volunteers who believe that going the extra mile is what leads to excellence. It's the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. In fact, it is that volunteerism is what makes our school excellent. It's not what we do every day during the time of the hours that class is in session. We're giving good lessons to our students during math and ELA. They're going to love those lessons. But what they're going to talk about are the things I just shared with you, the things that are far above and beyond what we do in a regular, ordinary school day. And I'm going to talk about the spirit of volunteerism. It's fragile. It's like the delicate wings of a butterfly. When you respond to volunteerism with kind words, they lift. They're like a saving updraft. When you respond to volunteerism with critical words, those words crush. They're like a dooming downdraft. In our school, in our district, from the youngest age, we actually teach our children how to govern their words. That banner appears all over our classrooms. Think T is for, is it true? H, is it helpful? I, is it inspiring? N, is it necessary? K, is it kind? Last Friday morning, myself and 6 other chaperones, Sarah Kane, Jen Walter, Jody Kelly, Pam Reese, Darlene Coy, Sharon Armstrong, and myself were in Washington, D.C., literally and figuratively going the extra mile. Traveling 10 hours down, 10 hours back, spending lengthy amount of time with the kids during the day. None of those staff members have had a day off in the last 11 days. They've worked 11 days straight. To be able to run this trip, which again is just a travel opportunity like we have for the high school students who are right now in London, if I recollect.
Not quite yet.
Not quite yet?
On their
Leaving, on their way, on their way. When some words appeared. On the Support Monomoy Public Schools face page, there was a negative thread of comments. They weren't uplifting, they weren't inspiring, they weren't nice, they weren't kind. None of the words there were helpful. And I'm here because those comments did crush the volunteer spirit that helps make our school special. The comments were posted. The moderator tried to help steer the conversation back to where it should be. Bring your concerns to the administration. Let them know how we can do this better. Eventually, the thread had to be taken down because it was so negative, and Dan would twist on. A reminder to anybody who'd like to have a conversation about whether we should fund these types of travel opportunities through the budget. The right time to do that is through school council, which has the opportunity to shape the budget for our school. And anyone that's interested can come to our meetings. Those are posted. They know when those conversations happen. And let us know if there are things you'd like to put in our budget that help reflect the wishes and needs of the community and the strategic plan of our district. If you'd like to help with fundraising, our parents group that meets shortly after that meeting does fundraising and tries to help out. Feel free to come to that group. Last time, there was only 2 people in the room, myself and one other parent respondent for 3 years. Love to have more people. And if you'd like to communicate with the school, maybe the best way to do that is through email or phone to the school administrator, because really at the end of the day, I'm the one that could actually answer the questions. Most of the thread was not true. All of it was not helpful. None of it was inspiring. And it was neither nice nor kind. And I appeared today in front of everybody in the community to let you know that the volunteer spirit that makes our school so special should not be attacked through social media. Come and help. We'd love to have you help. But think first and then step forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for saying everything that you just did and everything that you do at the middle school. And thank you for the volunteers who did chaperone and take those students. Is there anybody else for public comment? Please. If you could introduce yourself or tell us your name.
Sure.
Thanks.
My name's Shelley Waite, and I'm a mother of a 1st grader and a 7th grader. Sydney Waite was just on the Washington, D.C. trip. And I felt it was really important to come here and express how awesome it has been in the last week to have so much conversation with my 7th grader about what she experienced, how much she loved it, how amazing was to be with her teachers and her principal on this trip. They had a great time, which has made my 1st grader start a countdown, which is lengthy, for her chance to get to go. When I woke up, or when I saw the posts on Friday, it made me really sad to think that that was some people's way of expressing what they wanted to see happen. I had been to a meeting a year before we went where they talked about fundraising and scholarships, and my own daughter went on the World Strides website and saw that there were suggestions of raking leaves or mowing lawns or shoveling walkways, or if, asking people if they needed help. There are lots of people who just plain would love to sit and talk to somebody. I told Sydney that if she really wanted to go, we are no means privileged, or, we don't make tons of money, but something that she wanted so bad, she had to participate in. So we said, come up with some ideas of what you could do, and I will pay you for those hours. Empty the dishwasher, make your bed, things that she doesn't normally do, that she could do to help out, to create a little extra time for me and Dad, and she did them. And she was extremely proud of herself. And that's kind of the point that I wanted to bring to everybody, is that she had a hand in something that she really, really, really wanted, and she made it happen. And as a parent, I saw that she really, really, really wanted it. So I made it happen, whether it was extra hours at work or whatever I had to do. If there was fundraising that I could have done, I probably would have. But you're asking tons of time and money from people that might not have it in that instance also. But it was a very important trip. Sydney is a really anxious kid, and to see how proud she was to go away and accomplish what she accomplished and have a great time with her friends and her teachers and live to talk about it, which she did a great job at, was really an awesome moment as a parent. And it would be really, really sad if these kids didn't have this opportunity to go on these trips. It's in 5th grade, when she went to Truro, that was another amazing opportunity to see how she can grow and how proud they are of themselves when they get back. And just the experiences. She's heard me talk about my bucket list. I think all the volunteers knew that the cherry blossoms were on my bucket list. I got more pictures of cherry blossoms, which is very funny because they were somewhere first and the cherry blossom trees were like this big. And Sydney said, Mom, I couldn't believe that you wanted to see those until they got to the mall and saw these gorgeous trees. But it's just been so fun and so exciting to hear the happiness in her voice of experiencing this trip. I really felt that it was very important for me to tell you guys as a parent how awesome it was to see that through her eyes.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all for taking them. A mom left her children, dads, brothers, sisters, you all on your own time did that for them. And it's amazing, and thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy.
Mr. Russell?
Mark, I want to convey my thanks to you as well as the volunteers. Living the life I led, I know how much effort and stress goes into planning and also enjoying the way with hours and hours creating this climate. I just chatted privately with Mark about the trip. I have a grandson, Declan, went on it, and he had an absolute ball. The theme is like, I just saw him an hour ago over at his house. The theme of my expression would be stub your toe. I gave him a touch before he left, and I saw him when he got back, and as tired as he was absolutely thrilled with Mount Vernon and all of the other things that he was able to be exposed to with all his friends that went. So I said, what did you bring home for a gift? And he had a box with a kind of a squared grass crystal. And if you looked at it, you could see Lincoln Memorial and the white house, kind of carved out in the stone, very, very nice, very heavy. So I said, is this for your mom and dad? He said, no, it's for me. So I said, good for you. Well, I swung in there just now, and he was limping around the house with a swollen big toe. It seemed he was admiring his gift to himself, and he dropped it on his big toe. But you know what'll be nice for this 7th grade kid? For all his life, that stubbed toe will remind him of this terrific trip that he was able to go on. So despite the fact that the folks who might have stubbed their own toe making comments without thinking, those things happen to all of our lives, and that pain will go away. So I thank you for persevering. The vast majority of the experience was a home run. So again, thanks.
Is there any other public comment? Okay. Ms. Richardson? No, I'm sorry, Ms. Sheehan, sorry.
No, I didn't. You scared her. I just want to say I took that trip for 15 years with 500 kids. It wasn't just me. Spirit of volunteerism. It was the parents, it was the teachers, and it was the best experiences of my life. And so I thank you for doing that, and the kids will come back, and they'll thank you too. I'm very proud to hear that you did have a good time. It's a wonderful, wonderful trip. So thank you from me.
Ms. Dowd?
My granddaughter also went on the trip and really enjoyed it. I think that any comments about all of the kids wanting to go or parents wanting their kids to go is only a compliment. I don't think there's anybody thinking that this shouldn't happen. We very value this so much. And all of the staff that went and spent their time doing this. It's a wonderful thing for the kids. So I hope you will take it as a compliment that everyone would love to go. It's a wonderful part of our school.
I think it's important to remember that social media it's a blessing and a curse. And I think that in this situation, it was a curse. And I think that people did not think before they wrote. I don't think people realize that the chaperones were on there, teachers were on there, other parents were on there, parents of younger kids, parents of older kids whose students already went. They're all reading that. And I think it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And I think that's not right. And I think that people need to think before they write. You know, it's very easy to type something quick and hit enter and it's gone. And if you don't read it a few times to realize and think about, I keep using the word think and I feel like I'm a broken record, but if you don't think about what you're writing and who's going to be reading it, you're going to be hurting people. And I'm sorry that you guys were hurt by those, because I think what Ms. Stout is saying is accurate, is that people want to be able to go and they just didn't think before they wrote. So hopefully they're thinking now. And thank you again very much for all that you guys do. All right, well, we will move on to recognition. So we can just continue to recognize you guys for taking them on the trip, so thank you. Mr. Carpenter, other recognitions?
Yeah, just, to at least tag onto that, I know that my daughter didn't go this year, but she went last year, and I think that as a school district, one of the things that we pride ourselves in is adult connections to kids. And I know that one of the big takeaways from my own daughter last year was that I think she was dreading the trip initially because she apparently got put in the group with the principal. And it's like, Dad, can you do something about that? And it was really sweet to hear her come home after the trip talking about Mr. Wilson as this real person and having connected to him. And I know, just as Ms. Sheehan said, I had been on those trips, in fact, for my own children when that was their rite of passage when they finally became walkers. If you could walk, then you were allowed to go with Dad on the Washington, D.C. trip when he chaperoned, and because Dad was not going to carry you, and so that my own kids had had been on that trip as children, and it was, I think, really exciting for them for my daughter to go as a student herself. And for me, I thought the most touching thing that she took away out of that was this really strong connection with her school principal. And I know that the kids that are in each of the teachers' groups, I know there's some other adult now that they have a strong connection with, so thank you. In terms of just other recognitions, I'll start with a trip that we are looking towards, and to thank, first of all, the Art of Charity Foundation for a $2,000 donation towards this. But this year, the 7th grade at the middle school is studying Lauren Wolk's novel Beyond the Bright Sea, which takes place on Cuttyhunk Island. And there's a want to have a class trip to Cuttyhunk, which is about an $8,000 price tag, and the Art of Charity has come up with that first piece to go and make that want happen. I'm sure that we'll see other donations come in and realize that. So again, some really fantastic opportunities for our kids in these trips. Other things we have, the Friends of Chatham Waterways has donated $2,330 for the middle school to have a field trip to Muddy Creek and the Cape Cod National Seashore, and to have scientific equipment for the grade 7 field work. $4,000 from the Friends of Chatham Waterway to the middle school for a well watch trip and transportation, and student scholarships for the annual writers retreat at the Cape Cod Sea Camps, and $3,000 from the New England Patriots Foundation to the high school for the Game Change New England Patriots Anti-Violence Partnership Program, and finally $7,560 from the Friends of Harwich Early Childhood Advisory Council to the Harwich Elementary School Make Way for Kids for an 8-week summer program. So thank you to all of our benefactors.
Those are wonderful opportunities. Thank you. Great. So we move into reports and discussions, and we have first up our social emotional learning update with Mrs. McGuire. Hello.
Hello, good evening. Melissa McGuire, Director of Student Services. So I'm happy, I think this is my maybe third report on social emotional learning, so I'm very excited I'm very pleased to present the continuation of the work that we're doing, maybe. There we go. So first I want to start, because this is social emotional learning, so we're going to start with this.
Oh, that's what.
Sit up straight and close your eyes. As you settle in, take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale long. Your breathing helps you relax, calming your mind and your body. So focus on your breath. Bring your attention back, feeling calm and relaxed.
So these are video clips that students have recorded, and they play at the high school on the monitors in the morning. So there's several students that have recorded these. So that's just kind of starting our day in a nice way to be able to be prepared for our learning. So in terms of social emotional learning overview, what we're looking at is what are the skills that are necessary to be able to effectively have positive relationships, be able to self-manage ourselves, be able to engage in social situations, to show empathy, all sorts of skills. There are 5 competencies that we look at for social emotional learning. So this is kind of an overview of what social emotional learning is. And then, have shown you in the past the vision that has been created through our fabulous social emotional learning steering committee. And what I really just want to focus on, again, it's not the whole big, 3-paragraph vision, but that we're focusing again on the 5 core competencies of social emotional learning: self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, social awareness, and relationship skills. And we're doing that through the ability to have a safe and supportive learning environment, building positive and supportive relationships, excelling academically, socially, and emotionally, and having those tiered interventions. So this is a video from one of our students, Patrick Sullivan, and it kind of talks about, this is about diversity, acceptance, understanding, empathy, and he has done an outstanding job communicating this. I can tell you, I felt Mom's tears through the email exchange we had about this video and presenting this, and how proud certainly she is, and everybody is, and I'm sure the whole school has a better appreciation, understanding, empathy for Patrick, and how hard it is for him to express himself, but yet he was able to do that so eloquently, I might say. So we've come in the last year and a half on a long journey of lots of activities and strategies and supports that we've put in place. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. Clearly by certainly Mr. Wilson this evening, and, talking about think and talking about culture and climate in the schools, and that's really part of our goal with social emotional learning, is to really build a very positive school climate and culture. So there's, again, a lot of these things I've presented in the past, and those that are highlighted in blue are things that I'm actually going to target this evening to talk about. With the first one I wanted to share is with the SEL Steering Committee, we created 4 goals, and I wanted to report on one of the goals this evening, which was the goal about seeking community support to develop an internal and external marketing plan. And I want to publicly thank Jim Pressman, who attended our last SEL committee. He's from Blue Anchor Advertising, donated his time and spent the whole committee meeting with us looking at formulating a plan. And lots of brainstorming happened that evening. The excitement in the room was fabulous. And we came up with a couple of proposed taglines. One, Mr. Pressman thought positively Monomoy was a nice tagline. And then one of the members then kind of threw out there, celebrate Monomoy, using the SEL. So those were 2 things that came out of that meeting. And then on top of that, we were talking about understanding that social emotional learning and about 30 minutes a week will produce 11% academic growth. And so folks were looking at maybe having a high 5 sign, or having it be the symbol with each of the 5 core competencies on the fingers. So we're working on that. And then a follow-up from Mr. Pressman was amazing. He sent an email with just a breadth of ideas, suggestions on how we can move forward with a marketing plan. So this is really exciting, how we can make sure, and again, speaking to Mr. Wilson and the community, is that we want to extend this to the community. We want to make sure that we're not just teaching social emotional learning skills here, that it is out in the community as well, and the community is aware of what does that look like. So that they can support our students and our staff and our families. The other thing that's been exciting, and I've talked a little bit about the collaborative problem solving in the past, through a grant through NAMI, they had about a $200,000 grant and invited us to participate in receiving training on collaborative problem solving, which is through Mass General Hospital's Think Kids. So there were 18 of us that took the full day training. And then in March, we went to a 2.5-day training, which is a Tier 1 training for coaches. And then October 5th, all of our staff will be invited, including cafeteria workers, including custodial staff, for an all-day training on collaborative problem solving. So, and that is part of the grant as well. And then the 18 coaches will receive a Tier 2 training that will be able to, through the grant again, advanced training on really supporting our staff once they've been trained to really understand what the strategies are of collaborative problem solving. Our Excel network, which is the Excellence Through Social Emotional Learning, which again, we are one of 9 districts in the state that were chosen to participate through, again, another grant with the wonderful guidance and consultation through Teachers 21, Transforming Education, and Rennie Center. And we're at a point now where we've been able to propose or draft 3 priorities as a result of the last time I presented a needs assessment. So we asked staff also what things were important. And what was really interesting about this as we tried to formulate our priorities, we started with the students. And the more we thought about it, we shifted that because it's important that we start with the staff and that they have the skills and the strategies to then support the students. So our first priority is actually looking at supporting staff and the ability for us to observe the 5 core competencies of social emotional learning in the classrooms, in the building, and the district. And then our second priority was for students to identify one adult, and we've been talking about that as part of the strategic priority in making sure that students do have an adult that they can identify with or they can speak with if they're experiencing some type of struggle. And our third priority is looking at the curriculum, making sure that we have a solid foundation for implementing curriculum. We've been able to really fine-tune our thinking on the curriculum. We have second step, which we're going to be piloting with pre-K, K through grade 2. And then because we had a grant for our anti-addiction program for the Botman Life Skills, that also covers the 5 core competencies of social emotional learning in addition to it meeting the mandated anti-addiction curriculum. So we'll implement that grades 3 through 12. So it'll be a very nice complement of pre-K through 2 with the second step moving into the Botman Life Skills. So we're really excited about that. In addition, with the Botman Life Skills, we've been able to provide a series of parent trainings. We just had one this past Tuesday night. We have 2 more to go. The parents that have been participating have come every session, and I have to tell you, it's been such a rewarding experience to meet with these parents and for them to be fully invested and committed to understanding themselves as parents and how that they can support their own children. So the second step, pre-K pilot, again, this is, we're going to be looking and inviting teachers pre-K through 2 to be pilot teachers for next year. And as we were talking about this, if every teacher wants to do it, we're okay with that as well. But we will just offer an invitation for volunteers to do that first for the following year, where they'll be provided with professional development and support, and then they'll be able to model what those lessons look like so that we can begin to shape it into all the classrooms. The You Are Important campaign, Mr. Burkhead has spoken a lot about this, and the 620, the Home Away from Home, and if you haven't seen this video, this gives you a nice glimpse of 620.
Enthusiasm, pride, and love are all free and they are contagious. The goal is to spread our story throughout our wonderful school and the greater community through sharing the 620 card and the story behind it. Celebrate when you get or receive a 620 card. Tweet it out by using hashtag MRHS620 to spread the word. Have fun and share the good news.
Very good.
We got to see Mr.
Don't pause
Burkhead,
that.
sorry.
Of course, as one of the founder of this conference meeting, of being important to someone, and representing respect and love and what we resemble as a home away from home here at Monomoy, I want to present this to you and say thank you, that you're really important here and you spread so much goodwill in our school that I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Well, Dan, yeah, first of all, because I miss you so much. And I miss you because last semester when you so willingly came and offered your help in the office just because you wanted to help, it was indeed a great help. And not only were you good at what you did, but you were efficient, you were confidential, you were very professional, and I appreciate it. And I wanted to give you a 6-year-old card to show you how much I appreciate you. So that's for you. Thank you for all your help. Keep it up. Appreciate you so much. Stop shaking, you're not in trouble. Cody, Miss Farrow gave me this 620 card because I was helping out, so I just wanted to give back to you because I heard you were helping out other students in class.
Thanks. So this card was passed on to me by another student for doing a good deed, and I thought I'd give it to you for what you do for the school, and the students appreciate it. Thank you very much, bud. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Burkhead, for letting me share that, and really, there's such a fabulous demonstration of how we create a positive school culture and climate. You don't need that, right? Another thing that's, that the high school shared with me is their pineappling, and this is another way to build culture and a positive climate amongst teachers. And it's a voluntary activity where the teachers are able, to get to know one another better, but they're able to go into each other's classrooms, and they're able to have conversations, and they're able to really develop a strong relationship with each other. And that is something that has just recently begun, Mr. Burkhead, just in the past week. So I'm thankful to the high school for sharing this information so that I could present it this evening as well. And we have our partnership with Children's Cove, and I'm going to invite Jacob up here to share a little bit about what's happening with Children's Cove.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jacob Stapleton. I'm the Community Education and Outreach Coordinator for Children's Cove. Before I jump into that, just really quick show of hands, how many of you actually heard of Children's Cove? You can be honest. Okay. And then how many of you know actually everything that we do at Children's Cove? Okay, so you're going to have me back sometime so I can continue to talk about that. So really quickly, brief background on who we are. So Children's Cove, we're the Child Advocacy Center for the Cape and the Islands. And what we do is we provide a coordinated response with partner agencies and law enforcement, the District Attorney's Office, and the Department of Children and Families for the investigative and comprehensive response to cases of child sexual abuse, severe physical abuse, witness to domestic violence, and commercial sexual exploitation of children. One of the things that we are doing and we're engaging with is our Teen Task Force program. This is our second year of the Teen Task Force program, and we are super happy that we're having it here at Monomoy Regional High School. The point of the Teen Task Force program is to engage with teenagers, kids in high school, in making them aware of who we are and what we do, demystifying it. One of the things that we do know at Children's Cove is oftentimes a child who is affected, and 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys nationally will be affected by child sexual abuse. Only 1 in 10 of them will ever disclose their abuse. And about 50% of the time that it is something that's happened and it's somebody who's a teenager, they disclose to a peer. And so when we were working in the schools and we're working with teenagers, we want them to be aware of who we are, what we do, and the facts around sexual assault and sexual abuse for teens. And so the Teen Task Force program has been a way for them to kind of understand our process, including a meet and greet with all of our staff and kind of an icebreaker. We're working with 13 students at the high school for them to come to Children's Cove to actually walk through the building, to actually learn our process, to learn how it works. so that they can explain to peers that if they ever have a peer who comes and talks to them and says, I've had something happen, they can say, let me get you some help and you'd go to this place. They've been hearing presentations from law enforcement officers locally. Christine Hornby actually comes here and presents in the health class. Jerry Donovan, who's a trooper through the state police. Also hearing from some of our other partner organizations, such as Independence House, talking about domestic violence and dating partner violence. So we can really cover all of the aspects of concerns and risks that teenagers do have, so that when they get this information, that they understand what's happening, if not necessarily to them, but if a peer comes to them, because we want them to be able to be prepared to get that support. Because unfortunately, sometimes when peers are hearing this information, they don't know what to do. Even if they have that trusted adult, even if they have a parent that's close to them, whoever that may be, sometimes they just don't know what to do, or their friend doesn't want them to talk to somebody about it. So we want to give them the tools to be able to provide that support. A great group of students, and right now we're in the process of them doing an awareness campaign about Children's Cove, but also about the Teen Task Force. So one of the teams is actually actively, they're using, their design was cootie catchers, or the fortune tellers, little fold-ups, and they're around the buildings in different places, which has a lot of information and facts about issues that they may be facing. And then there's a lot of other, there's 2 other groups that are going to be having awareness campaigns that are coming out as well. So they've been doing a fantastic job, excellent group. We only have 1 more session next month, and I'm looking forward to it. So I just want to leave a moment, because I don't want to steal too much of Ms. Blair's time, if anybody has any questions or thoughts or comments about the Teen Task Force that I could try to clarify for you today. No?
How often do they meet? Are they volunteers? What grade levels are they?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started, our very first session was in December. It's a 6-month program, so it's from December to May, so next month is our last. We only meet once a month. The schedule is actually in the back of the 1-page handout that I gave to you, which covers the kind of the topics. It was all self-selection. I worked very closely with Ms. Police to get the word out through either the guidance department, with teachers. I know a number of the teachers that are here to kind of raise awareness about what the Teen Task Force is for them to self-select. We don't want to, say, hey, you're going to be the one that's doing it, because everybody has different interests, and we want to be able to capture people of all different backgrounds and all different situations. There's actually an interview process, an application process, and a letter of recommendation that comes with it. So we only meet once a month for about 2 hours, and so it's pretty intensive, and then they have access to us as well. And the experience that they gain, along with the knowledge, is they work very closely with our marketing agency that we work with, Grouper Marketing Creative. So when they actually do these awareness campaigns, they're learning about marketing, they're learning about how to get awareness out, and the content and the quality that they put out is high quality. So,
Thank you.
absolutely. Any other questions? So, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the high school for having us come and be supportive. If you all ever have any questions or you'd like to talk with me further, please visit our website. If you go to our staff, my email is on there. All of the information I gave to you. If you have any other questions, please let me know. And in my role, if you ever have an opportunity where you'd like me to speak to parents about safety or speak with teachers or anything along those lines, I'm always available. And Ms. Ugar knows how to get in touch with me. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Nancy. Jacob, I just want to say, not a question, but
Yes.
I have tremendous, I'm a local psychotherapist, and I have tremendous respect for what Children's Cove does, and I've heard from many other school counselors and therapists what a great job you've done with lots of very delicate things. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now I'm going to try to follow that. So, next, a little more updates with our Amazon Alexa dots. Folks, there's about 69 dots out in classrooms that are being used for some mindfulness activities, for movement breaks, for belly breathing, just for relaxation in general. Of course, and I have several videos, but it seems like the kindergarten videos are the best because I don't ever expect them to sit as long as they're sitting, except when Alexa is in charge. So here's, I think I showed one last time of them sitting and relaxing, but this is a movement.
Alexa, play a song to dance to for children.
Jackie.
No.
Just a little snippet, but what I'm loving about the communication with teachers is they're finding so many uses, and not just, for the mindfulness piece, but, I've got some language teachers who are saying, oh, we use it for Latin word of the day, and students are using it for a thesaurus and for spelling and for math, and there's all sorts of academic activities that kids can independently use the Alexa for, but they're still asking for their movement breaks, their breathing breaks, and that's what we wanted. We wanted kids to learn how is it they can use this as a tool to calm themselves down or actually to raise their awareness and be prepared for learning. So it's been a fabulous tool, and I think teachers are having fun really exploring what it can do. And actually, just to kind of add on to that, we had the pleasure of presenting at a state conference a couple weeks ago, and my partner was from DESE, from the Bureau of Research and Development, and she has, well, I actually called dibs on her, but that was a whole nother story. I asked her if she would come to Monomoy and help us develop some data collection on actually this mindfulness piece. We've had lengthy conversations, she and I, about how do you actually capture data to support whether mindfulness is working for students, and what does that look like? In terms of social emotional learning, we look at data such as referrals to the office or discipline, attendance, productivity. But how do we really know that some of these other pieces are working? So she's going to come and she's going to, we'll be the first in the state to develop a data collection for mindfulness in itself. So it's very exciting. Here's from the middle school. This is an awesome piece I'm going to show you where kids were really able to reflect. And this is where you also start to think about how students are gaining skills for empathy.
I had an emotional and eye-opening experience. I didn't know any of my classmates' personal lives. The Big Apple Playback Theater should definitely come back. It made me think differently about some people. I liked how everyone in the class had to participate. It shows what people have gone through. Also, to watch what you say, because you don't know what other people went through. I liked how much I learned about other people. It was reassuring to see other people go through what I do. I discovered that some people live better lives than others. Big Apple has done a wonderful job at opening our eyes a little bit wider.
So one of the pieces I'm always talking about in relationship to social emotional learning is that it's not something else we do. It's not in addition to what we do. It's part of the fabric of our community, of our teaching, of our learning. So it's how we embed it on a daily basis and how we teach those skills. So I'm at the end, and I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions for Mrs. McGuire? Ms. Richardson?
I don't have a specific question, although this is just so impressive how it's embedded and everything. But so far at this meeting, I have a suggestion for the next budget meeting. I think we ought to take the video of the first part of this lesson, including the statements about Washington, SEL, the culture that 620 develops, along with making these videos, taking all that culture and bringing it to the budget committee. That's all I wanted to say.
Why, what do you mean?
Empathy.
I like it. Any questions from Mrs. McGuire? Thank you. I agree. I think it's important that everything is embedded and it's all intertwined and it's not just one thing. And you do a very nice job of showing how it's all intertwined. Thank you. All right, so next up is the Harwich Elementary Data and School Improvement Goals Update. The dynamic duo.
That's nice, thank you. I like that. Good evening. My name is Sam Hine, Building Principal of Harwich Elementary School, and this is,
Mary Oldak, Assistant Principal, Harwich Elementary.
and soon to be Building Principal of Harwich Elementary School, may I add. Before we start, I went back and reflected about a month ago on how I was progressing through the year after making the statement that I was hoping this year would be a nice transition. And it's really nice to see that I had come to a conclusion that my goals and hopes and aspirations and staff and the school community as a whole had become, or will become soon, what I envisioned would be a fantastic school, or a blue ribbon school. And I still believe that. We've got a strong internal leadership team, and you're going to see very shortly that the decision to continue the path that we are on has been a good one. And when I said I felt it was time for me to pass the baton, I think tonight's going to prove my point. So I'm going to turn it over to my trusted colleague, Mary.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Tonight we're going to give you an update on our school improvement plan and our student achievement data. We have, just to kind of set the context for our discussion tonight, I just wanted to go over our enrollment demographics. Harwich Elementary has right around 550 students. We have a total of 34 classrooms. 5 of our preschool classrooms, those are actually 2 AM and PM sessions and 2 classrooms. So, and our full day Make Way for Kids grant funded full day program for working families that was started by the Monomoy Early Childhood Council back in the 1980s. That's now housed and part of Monomoy. We have 6 classrooms per grade level except for grade 4 where our class sizes tend up more towards 20. Otherwise we ride right around our goal of 18 plus or minus 1. In terms of our demographics socioeconomically, we have 24 ELL students. That number has risen a little bit in the last few years. 67 students on IEPs who benefit from individualized specialized instruction. And right now we have about 220 students on free and reduced lunch, and that is an indicator of our economically disadvantaged families. So that number actually has gone up quite a bit, about 10% this year. And it might be the encouragement to have parents enroll in that program so that their families can benefit from it. Sometimes that's a challenge for families who want that private. But our high needs subgroup is actually now up over 50% at 56% at Harwich Elementary. I think this graphic might be familiar to you. This is the Massachusetts tiered system of support. We have inside the center circle there is really what we think about as being more of our student-centered supports, and the triangle with the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 supports as we provide tier 1 interventions to students. That's our core instruction, our curriculum that pretty much about 80% of our students benefit and are able to make progress with. Tier 2 is when we get involved with academic and non-academic supports in the way of social and emotional supports. And tier 3 are our students who really need the more intensive support, both academically and non-academically. But you see that arrow on the side there just means that it's more fluid, that students can be, may have tier 3 social emotional needs, but maybe are very successful at tier 1 academic supports. And the outer circle there really is, and the blue is really how the community and the district support the students through our leadership, our governance, our financial and asset management, our human resources, our curriculum and instruction, and how all this works together as a blueprint for school improvement and to benefit students. So our school improvement plan that was approved last June by the school committee was a one-year plan, and it has 4 focus areas. Focus area 1, which is school council improvement. Focus area 2, which is family and community engagement. Focus area 3, supporting all students as learners. And focus area 4, which is our continued development of a high-quality core curriculum and instruction. Going to start out tonight by talking about our progress in focus area 1 under school council improvement. Our goal was to strengthen our Harwich Elementary School Council to provide greater member involvement and shared decision making. And over the course of this school year, we've been able to reboot our school council so that we now have 18 family, community, and faculty members. And that is a really wonderful, beautiful cross-section of our community. We have grandparents as parents. We have parents as community members, firefighters, police officers, retired teachers, preschool parents, representation from every grade. And that group has just really taken off this school year. And we have been able to really get their input on our budget priorities. They really digested and thought through the elementary configuration. And the work product that we have really put forth this year was kind of fundamental into just getting the school council kind of, off with a vision, and was to actually take some time and create a vision for Harwich Elementary. This is the school council vision statement that was adopted in January by the school council. The process was, we asked all of the committee members to please come with 3 or 4 ideas that they felt very passionate about, and what would provide the guidance for Harwich Elementary into the future. And we broke into small groups, and they created themes around what things just started to really gel and pop. And then we had a subcommittee of a 4th grade teacher, Lisa McManaman, Karen Booth, a retired special educator and from Harwich Elementary and a Harwich resident, and Kathy Smith, a retired teacher and Harwich resident, got together and created the draft of this statement. And so you can see that, the focus is on building the partnerships with families and the community, and providing that safe, stable, and joyful environment to nurture the development of the emotionally and physically healthy child. And with that acknowledgement that if all that's in place, then achievement will come. And it was really very wonderful to watch how Sam and I just sort of stood back and just watched this kind of organically come from the group, and how well that syncs up with our strategic plan and all of our initiatives around social emotional learning in the district as well. So it's really wonderful to see how everyone's really on the same page, and it's just coming from our community and our parents as well. I'm now going to talk about our focus area 3, supporting all students as learners. I specifically asked to go after Mrs. McGuire tonight because I think it'll be interesting for you to see how so much of what we've been kicking off this year and getting underway in the way of social emotional learning is being implemented at Harwich Elementary, or being planned for. Getting back to that MTSS blueprint, our goal really is to ensure that every student receives the support they need to maximize their learning within inspiring school culture. And it's no surprise that we all know that students who face challenges in academic skills and social competence are really the ones that are at this exponentially higher risk for negative school outcomes. And the more impact we can have that on the elementary level really will affect their trajectory as they move on through the grades. The continuum of multiple supports and initiatives we have at Harwich Elementary going into place is, as Melissa mentioned, the K-4 social emotional learning curriculum pilot. Next year, we will be piloting, actually I should say pre-K to 4, second step in pre-K through second grade, and bot film life skills in 3rd and 4th grade. And we have teachers just chomping at the bit. I think our pilot might end up being more of a school-wide pilot, but because everyone's so excited about it. At the beginning of the school year, we essentially had no students and families taking advantage of our Gosnell counseling resources. And at this moment in time, our counselor is totally full up. She comes in twice a week on Mondays and Tuesdays with a caseload of 15 students and who are taking advantage of that resource. Very proud to say that 20 members of our Harwich elementary staff are in the program to become, earn a certificate in being a trauma-sensitive teacher. And we have taken them through Trauma 1 and Trauma 2. It's a 4-course program. And Trauma 3 will be offered this fall in Monomoy. And we have a core group that's really committed to seeing that through. We're starting to see how all this is coming together in terms of like our placement process and our student support team. And we'll talk about how the integration of this is really starting to come together a little bit later on. Mrs. McGuire also mentioned collaborative problem solving. We have 4 Harwich Elementary staff who've been to that training and are getting ready to roll as training the staff next fall after our whole district PD in October. And of course, we're very excited to continue building upon our fantastic positive behavior interventions and supports. This has had a tremendous impact on our school culture, just the positive vibe with our students explicitly learning behavior expectations in all the school settings and really rewarding that in a positive way. In terms of PBIS or being fantastic, we track some of the success of that through our how often we have students referred to the office for major discipline referrals. On the vertical axis there, you see average referrals per day. That's what we look at just it neutralizes out months that might have vacation weeks or shorter months or longer months. And so the green bars are where we were tracking last year. And you can see the red line at the top is the 75th percentile for the country. The black line is the median score. And the green line down there is the 25th percentile. So last year, we were running above the median for the nation, and you see in November, December, January, February, we were up around an average of 3 or 4 referrals per day into the office. And you may say, okay, well, you implemented this in September. Why are the referrals actually going up September to February? And the reason for that is that teachers were becoming comfortable with what was truly an office referral, what was something that, and how we could help support them, and also us getting better with our record keeping and data keeping in terms of how we actually manage the referrals and get it into our database. We also, the other story there is our buses. We had in December, 50% of our discipline referrals were coming off the buses. And so our response to that was we started bus school. And bus school is where we had the drivers come back a little bit before dismissal, and we called each bus down and we went through a mock bus ride and talked about the explicit and behavior expectations and took them on a quick jaunt down around Sisson, back up through the old middle school, and gave them all a fantastic sticker and said, you can do it. You've passed bus school, so now we know you can do it. And So by the time, I think by February, we had done all 12 buses, and kids actually wanted more bus school. They liked bus school. So you'll see our numbers dropping off. February into March, we're really starting to see the benefit of bus school and just the positive reinforcements throughout the school day. So the other story there is the blue, which is this year, which is a very exciting story to tell. You can see just what the reduction has been September through the end of March there, and we are well below the median for the nation, and this is, I think you can just feel it in our school. That's calm, it's peaceful, students know what the expectation is, they're positively rewarded for that, and we have some statistics around that. We've had a 48% decrease in office referrals over last year. We also feel that this is in addition to our Tier 2 and Tier 3 social emotional learning supports that I'll talk about on the next slide a little bit more detail. We also can translate this to, if you think about each office referral representing maybe about a 45-minute loss of time. Some teachers would say that's a very conservative estimate by the disruption in the classroom, the time the student's been out of the classroom down to the office, getting them back, and how that's impacted other students. An overall 57% increase on time on learning for those students, which is particularly important in and of itself, but it also 63 of those students are in our high need subgroup, which are at more risk anyway. So that's been very encouraging. And we also have 94% of our students have 0 to 1 office referrals. And that last year, that was more around 85%. So, 94% of our kids are doing the right thing every day and being fantastic. And we really can feel that in our culture and our building. This is an example of our Tier 2 supports. This is check-in, check-out. I have to acknowledge Nancy Barnett, our school psychologist, for her initiative on this pilot. It is that each student has a mentor that they meet with very briefly. They check in with them at the beginning of the school day, very positive, always positive, and it's about forming a connection with an adult in the building and having that person check in with them at the end of the day too. And our theme for this is the starfish on the beach, and for those of you who aren't familiar with the story, it's about how one kind act can change the world. These are pictures from our kickoff with the parents. We had little cafe tables almost, seating for 4. It was the child, their teacher, their mentor, and a parent. And so that everyone met, everyone was on board, everyone was part of it, and having that connection with the family. And so far we have the benchmark that we're looking for is for the students to earn at least 80% of their daily points, and we're around 75 to 99% of that for our students. So it's going very well, and everyone is very excited about the results, and we hope to expand that next year. Just to take you quickly through how our fantastic reward system works. This is one of our younger students who just loves his stickers. Those are actually just from one day for this little guy. And the big ones that he has on his shirt are quite coveted in the school. So once you earn a sticker, it translates into a pom-pom or a water drop into the fishbowl, and that's in the classroom. The classrooms keep track of how many fish bowls they filled out the outside of their classroom door. Creates a little bit of a sense of competition, just healthy. And once the fish bowl is filled 5 times, each classroom gets to put, this is an example of the fish bowls in the unified arts. So for example, I think this might be in music. Mr. Roberts, our music teacher, has a fishbowl for each grade level, as do all the unified arts teachers. And they celebrate as a grade level once they fill their fishbowl in unified arts. Then the grade level gets to put their big stuffed shark in the tank back there. You see on the wall, that's first grade, celebrating putting their stuffed shark. And when we have all 6 sharks in, so that's pre-K through 4, we have all the sharks in the tank. We have a whole school celebration. This was last month. It takes us about 6 weeks, 7 weeks to fill that tank. And this is Back to the Future. The students went back and visited with last year's teacher. So these are second graders coming back to their first grade teachers, and everyone just loved it and loved the connection with the kids. You can see the smiles and the hugs. This is another all-school celebration. This is whole school Zumba, which could have been utter chaos, but the Zumba teacher graciously donated her time to come in and teach each grade level the Zumba dance throughout the week. So by the time we were doing it as a whole school, it actually was quite coordinated and went really well and was a lot of fun. So every time we celebrate as a whole school, that represents 18,000 fantastic acts. We're almost to our 4th Shark Tank this year, so that's over 70,000 fantastic acts by our students, which is really something to think about. When you have 550 kids, that's 72,000, and we're just in April. As part of that focus area 3, we've also been looking, and we have just finished talking about the social emotional supports, looking at our K-2 early intervention supports, and we have adopted the foundational reading skills program this year, and well, we have been working on the pilot this year. That's the Words Their Way program, which you've heard about in our budget. And that pilot this year will be wrapping up next May, this coming May, and we look to have that implemented next school year in K-2. We're maximizing our capacity for K-2 student intervention support, which I'll talk about in a moment, and as part of that, continuing to develop our practices for analyzing student work and data, which is something DESE brought to us as an area of improvement in their report last year to us. So our K-2 intervention focus, we have 2 reading teachers and 1.6 math interventionists who work with our students who require extra support in Tier 1 and Tier 2 support. Well, Tier 1 is within the classroom, Tier 2 can be within the classroom or with an interventionist. And this is how we've been really trying to shift the focus to K-2 from K-4, and I'll tell you about that story. The research behind the support of that change in focus is that we know that anytime that we have a gap that early on in a child's education in the kindergarten preschool time, that we have something called the Matthew effect, which is kind of the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the gap just continues to grow. So the blue line there really looks at the students who were at low risk for an early screening in kindergarten, first grade, and then the red line really is the students who were at risk. And if we don't intervene, research shows that reading intervention, that it can take 150 to 300 hours of instruction to catch a child back up after they have not learned to read. And you think about that, well, it doesn't seem like that much time, but when you think about maybe a student meets with a reading teacher 3 times a week for 30 minutes over a school year with breaks and everything, it's a significant gap that we're trying to close. And as we look at our numbers and how we've moved through this, we have the graph here. On the left, we see cycle 1 and cycle 2 for 2016 to 17. And the yellow box down there in the left-hand corner shows the number of students we had in intervention in reading and math in 3rd and 4th grade. And it was almost a triage kind of situation, because we knew that our resources were best used at K-2, but we had these 3rd and 4th graders who definitely, absolutely needed that support. And over the course of the last 3 years, we've been really turning that focus by, I say it's like turning the USS Intervention, the ship, from that 3 and 4 to the K-2. And that story there is, you know, we've gone from 50% of our intervention being a K-2 to 79%, which is great. That's right where we want to be. And the reason for that is we have a tremendous intervention staff who are very skilled, and they are excellent in what they do. And we also have had the support and the funding to make that happen. And as we become better with our Tier 1 core curriculum, we can really begin to focus our efforts in the K-2. And of those students in intervention, 91% of them have met their MAP growth goal, which is just, you know, they're growing the way they should be, which is exactly what we want to see. This is a report that our MAP program generates for us. This is actually for mathematics, and those green circles there, I just highlighted those for you to see. Fall and winter, we have fall 2007 to winter 2018. If you just look at how those growth numbers have changed and shifted, and there's how we just are reaching so many more of our students with good differentiated instruction, so that they're meeting, we're just seeing a growth in how they're growing. And so that's how it looks for mathematics. At 1st grade, we have 90% of our students hitting their growth goal, all the way down to 4th grade at 57%, but still a tremendous improvement over last year. In reading, we see a similar story. If we look way off on the right in the green circle, that right around 75% of our students are meeting their growth projection in reading, and from 1st grade into 4th, which is really encouraging to see that that students are being challenged and are growing regardless of their achievement level. So we think about why the focus on student growth, and the reason why we focus on student growth is because it's a wonderful indicator of our differentiated instruction and how well we're meeting each student's individual needs. It's a great indicator of the effectiveness of our intervention model, and it's also a great indicator of the effectiveness of our non-academic supports, like our social emotional learning. And, you know, as I always tell our staff, if we focus on growth, the student achievement will come. So with growth comes student achievement. And to tell that story, this is my favorite graph. It's called the Quadrant Report. And this is math school-wide for our school. On the left-hand side is 2016-17. On the right-hand side is 2017-18. And it's really a scattergram of where the students lie. Each cross represents one student in the building. So on the horizontal axis, we have achievement, and on the vertical axis, we have growth. So the bottom left pink quadrant is the quadrant that we're most concerned about. Those are students with low achievement, low growth. The yellow quadrant to the right is high achievement, low growth. Those are students who have the high achievement, but they're not growing, we're not meeting their needs, we're not differentiating, we're not challenging them. The orange in the top left is the quadrant I get most excited about. That's our low achievement, high growth. Those are students who are on the path for meeting their needs. They're growing the way we want them to. And of course, the green quadrant is high achievement, high growth, which is where we want all of our students to be. So if you look at that shift just from the baseline there in the pink, and the movement from 2016-17 to 2017-18, you can see that last year versus this year in mathematics, We had 64% of our students meeting their growth goal. This year we have 71% meeting their growth goal, so we're on the right path. Students are growing, and with that will come achievement in math. And a similar story in reading. You just kind of look more generally at where those boxes lie. Each one of those is an individual student. And you can see the migration up to that upper right-hand corner where we want all of our students to lie in high achievement, high growth. And in reading, last year we had 59% of our students meeting their growth goal. And this year, to date, we have 73% of them meeting their growth goal. So very encouraging numbers. And when you think about why all this is happening, you know, it's not just about the curriculum and the instruction, it's really the whole story. It's our invested school council and their commitment to where we're headed and what we need to do that job. It is our staff becoming more familiar with how to analyze student data and to use that to inform their instruction and differentiate how they're teaching to meet student needs. And the district and administration providing them with the professional development that they need to do that. It's also a story about the success of our K-2 intervention model and how we're reaching kids at a time in their academic career that's going to have the most impact. Our social emotional learning supports and how the students feeling safe and emotionally secure that they're going to be ready to learn and available for learning. It's a story about our empowered teacher teams, our instructional leaders, and how they've grown as leaders within our school and how they're translating that into leading our grade level teams. All of which is leading to the feeling in our staff of having the ability to make a difference in their staff efficacy around, you know, we can do it, we can have an impact, and we can make this happen. I also want to say that it's also the resources from our community and the support that we get. We're very grateful for the funding to our schools and having what we need to do the job right. Also wondering about the earlier start time and the impact that may have. We certainly have all the anecdotal supports around that from our teachers, that they see the students are more available to learn throughout the school day. Our positive school climate and culture being fantastic, not just with the students, but with the staff, and with that comes the student and staff efficacy around their ability to make changes and make a difference. And, you know, just this whole idea that it's all connected, you know, that this is how kids learn when all of this is in place, and that's really what the MTSS blueprint is all about. Is about how we best support the students in that center circle with all of that community support and district support around the outside. So as we look forward to our next school improvement plan into 2018-19, it really is about how we're going to integrate all of this. We have so many exciting things happening, and you think about the visual of a rope and how all of that will come together and integrate, and all of which, you know, the outcome we're looking for is the successful student outcomes. It's really an exciting time at Harwich Elementary. Everything's gelling and clicking, and we're seeing it in our student growth numbers. And it's everyone on the staff and our families are really excited about the initiatives and where we're headed. So that's some of our students with our positive messages on their t-shirts, and it's a bulletin board that one of our second grade teachers has up right now. But are there any questions?
As you would get a report once a year from our fearless leaders, state level, federal level, the state of the school is strong, and it's going up. It's moving up in the right direction, and it's going to be under great leadership. It's got some great staff and the community support. You'll continue to see those scores rise. So thank you very much.
Nancy.
Ms. Dutt?
I'd just like to say thank you so much for that fabulous report.
Thank you.
Those, everything in here was impressive, but of course, those numbers of the referrals to the principal's office, I agree about the saving time, the learning, and those math, especially in the reading. Going up 14% in 1 year is really impressive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mr.
Well,
Russell?
I echo that. Great job, Sam and Mary.
Thank you.
Real quick questions. Of our 550 or so youngsters, how many guidance counselors do we presently have, FTEs in the building?
In that department, we actually don't have guidance counselors. We have 1.6 school psychologists and a team chair who's also 0.6. We made the change from having a 1.0 guidance counselor and a 1.0 school psychologist last year to the guidance counselor, there was no, she was able to very successfully transfer to the high school, but the school psychologist role provides a broader breadth of skill set to meet student needs, and right now we have 1.6 school psychologists, and so that we're meeting the students' needs through that role. Yeah.
A couple of other quick questions. Things have gone so fast, I commend you. I'm in awe. 56% of our kids are in that subgroup of one of the earlier slides. What elements make up maybe free and reduced lunch, but what are the other elements that make up youngsters that would fall into that category?
So high needs subgroup is ELL and students on special education. Well, ELL is an English language learner. Students who are in special education plans, and students who fall into the economically disadvantaged category, which is a metric that DESE is, actually it's more the federal government that's putting together. It used to be just free and reduced lunch, so that's why I use that kind of as a proxy for this. It's the family's access to certain, I guess, resources and whether or not they're accessing, social security supports and that sort of thing. And they look at that's how they qualify a family as economically disadvantaged, is around that. So I use free and reduced lunch because we don't have whether or not a family is economically disadvantaged available to us in our student system. So that's what we look to as kind of an estimation of that.
Two final quick questions. Trauma-sensitive certified staff, that's some training that allows them to...
Yep, it's actually not a certification. It's not something that DESE would recognize. It's a certificate that they can earn of advanced studies through Lesley University that is for if they complete the 4 courses in the Trauma-Sensitive Learning Institute.
And now here's my last challenge. I'm going to just give you a minute, just for my own information. When a youngster goes from K to 1, or 1 to 2, there's a placement process. Could you just throw real quick, without getting into details, of how the classes are assigned from one grade to the next, using 18 as a number?
Sure.
Boys and girls. And
Yep. We start out with the number of classrooms. So, for example, most of our grade levels have 6 classrooms. And we lay out those classrooms without teacher names because we want the focus to be on creating homogeneous groupings and balance, and not to be influenced so much by staff's perception of a teacher style or that sort of thing. And we have the teachers work, let's just talk about kindergarten into 1st grade. So they have 6 classes that they're placing into. We ask ahead of time for groupings of English language learners and special education students, just so we can be efficient with our servicing, with our inclusion classrooms, and with our English language learner staff. And we'll make decisions around which classrooms those students will go into. And then the teachers work very hard. It takes them probably 2 or 3 passes at working together during collaborative learning time or PLCs to look at each of the students, look at the balance in their academic skills in reading, writing, and math, their social emotional needs around behavior supports that might be needed. I'm just really trying to balance that as well as balance the boy-girl ratio as best as we can too. And always looking for that target of 18 plus or minus 1.
Thank you.
You're
Good.
welcome.
There's one little component that parents are usually very interested about, especially if they've had a challenging year. With the second report card, form goes home, it's a student profile. From a parent's perspective, what does my child benefit from to be successful? It's not to ask for a teacher. In fact, there's a disclaimer, if you ask or identify a particular teacher, it will be filed in a circular file. But if you can describe the attributes of your son or daughter, that will help us better understand child if we don't already know. And with kindergartners, we don't know them about more than 1 year. By the time they get to 3rd and 4th grade, we see fewer and fewer of those referrals or forms coming in, but it gives a parent a chance to say, my child has been with Johnny for 2 years in a row since preschool. A break would be nice. That's maybe information we may not have been aware of. We'll take that into consideration when we're looking at the placement and the final story.
Yeah. That's thank you for reminding me of that, Sam. So when those green cards come in and the class lists come in, Sam and I literally go through every single one of them and look at the parents' suggestions and make sure that those have that there's a good match there. And then the teachers also have time to transition and with the next grade level, so that they actually have conversations. And you know, having the grade span we do, it's wonderful that they can have access to each other as well throughout the school year.
Hey, great, thanks. More than a minute, and that's all, I just wanted to,
One very important part left for
We're
the
going
children-
beyond the minute and a half,
children,
so-
yes, is they have a step-up day opportunity in the last day of school to meet their new cohort, their new friends, their new teacher, their new classroom. Every student goes with someone that they have from their classroom. No child ever goes alone. And one of the last sorts we do is to make sure that there's not a group of one, whether it's academic, social, emotional needs. There's not an island in any of those classes. So they may not be their best friend, that the one they played with every day, but it's someone they know and that the teacher has confidence they would work well together.
Thanks, guys.
Ms. Dove?
My question is a follow-up about the counseling. The school psychologists, I know at the elementary levels, the referrals for special ed testing and all are fast and furious,
Yep.
especially this time of year. But
Yes.
I'm wondering if the two school psychologists are pretty flooded with referrals and not having much time to do the counseling, and I'm wondering if that's falling to the Gosnell or if this, I'm not concerned with who's picking it up, I'm just concerned with what
Yeah.
the kids are
Marie, so
able to do.
the Gosnell counseling actually is more of a convenience for families in that they don't have to, if a student is being seen for therapy by the space that we provide to Gosnell in the school, then they don't have to worry about trying to get that 4 o'clock appointment after school when, you know, everything's so busy with family life. It's also been a way that students whose parents may not be able, for one reason or the other, to get them to the therapy that the student needs, that we can make that very accessible to them. So it really it's more of a shift, I think, in how the outside therapy a family might be accessing has been shifted to providing access for that during the school day.
But the traditional role of the school counselor at the elementary school is to do social skills groups and to work with kids that have peer conflict or problems, you know, with their whatever. And I'm wondering if we have enough help on that because of the big needs there are for the testing that primarily school psychologists do.
I mean, there are definitely ebbs and flows with the testing, and you're absolutely right. This time of year is the January, February, March is when, you know, if we have students who've been in intervention where they're hitting that 2nd or 3rd cycle and we're as a building, starting to refer students internally for evaluation. But I think the staff that's a very common pattern, and that they're used to kind of that, kind of gearing up for that hit in the winter and how to make that work. And I know in the past, we've also been able to access school psychologists from other buildings to come in and support as well with testing too.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is the memorandum of understanding with the Chatham and Harwich Police and Barnstable County District Attorneys.
So, in
Mr.
your,
Carpenter.
in your packets, there is a memorandum of understanding between Monomoy Regional School District, the Chatham Police, Harwich Police, and it has also been vetted by the Barnstable County District Attorney, and I'd really like to thank Melissa for a lot of the work that she has put into bringing all the parties together. But what a memorandum of understanding does for a school district and the police that work with us is it really establishes a protocol or means for how we're sharing information. So you can imagine that there's sensitive information that needs to get shared in both directions, and it's making clear who the parties are that are sharing the information, when the information should get shared. So it lays out situations where something's happening. You can imagine police respond to a home over the weekend. There's something major that's happened there that the school needs to know about, and it talks about the protocols on how that information is going to get channeled to the school so that we're ready to support a student when they come through our doors. Likewise, there are things that happen within our buildings, and how do we share, who shares, and it also lays out just sort of that role of the school resource officer in this process, where frequently they are the liaison running between the school and the police. The other thing to clarify, while it's not in the memorandum of understanding, I think there's some misunderstanding as to who the school resource officer reports to. So the school resource officer is a police officer that reports to the police chief. They're under the police department budget, but because of this this memorandum and this sort of joint conversations that we've had, we have great relationships with both of our police departments, and that school resource officer that we've had a long time here in Harwich, Tom Clark, is part of the fabric of the schools. Tom coaches. He's a parent here in Harwich, and we can't I think speak highly enough about what Tommy brings to the table as our school resource officer, and we look forward to Chatham, which has voted this year to fund a school resource officer, to have that officer supporting the middle school and Chatham Elementary School.
Thank you. Any questions or conversation around the MOU? Ms. Stout.
On the evaluation, not that I have any complaints whatsoever, but on the evaluation of the resource officers, is that done by the chief then?
So it would be done. It would be done by the police department, but but again, we share information, and at least in my time here, I have nothing but positive things to go and say about what Tom Clark has brought to this this school district and the schools in Harwich, and likewise, while Sergeant Massey, who came to the presentation before you all just a couple weeks ago. Sergeant Massey isn't technically the school resource officer, but he has been the school liaison as long as I've been here as well, and Bill is just fabulous to work with.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else? No, all right, we will move into the debt exclusion information.
So
Mr.
just,
Carpenter.
I wanted to just share some, a couple of thoughts. So we have, in Harwich, they have pulled out the funding for the bathrooms at the concession stand. And I was meeting with the Boosters Club, and in terms of messaging, I think as a group, we've decided that we really need to emphasize what these are. And these are really handicapped, they're mandated, handicapped accessible bathrooms. In order to have bleachers at the turf field, you need to have handicapped accessible bathrooms. And there are bathrooms in the school building, but you can imagine for anyone that actually has a handicap to get from the bleachers all the way around into the school building, it now is, they're not close enough to provide a handicapped accessible bathroom next to the bleachers. So I think part of it is messaging that these are mandated handicapped accessible bathrooms that we want to finish. The Harwich's share of that is about $73,000. Then we have the Harwich's share of funding the stabilization fund for the school, which comes out to another about $35,000. So all totaled, it's just over $100,000 is Harwich's share for these two things. Again, the stabilization is to provide the district an ability to have an account if there are unexpected things like, a roof blows off of a building, like we had two that happened in Chatham. In this building, what we have discovered since we last met is, while the roof, and this is the only building that the school district owns, the Harwich Elementary School is owned by the town of Harwich, and the two buildings in Chatham are owned by the town of Chatham. This is the building we own. What we found out is that over the course of the storms that we had, because there were so many power oscillations, we have seen an extraordinary number of fans that run the rooftop units burnt out to the tune of, the repair bill, $36,000. So we're currently working with our insurance company on whether this can be an insurance claim. And of course, if you have an insurance claim, then you have a huge deductible that you're paying. So again, that type of stabilization fund could protect the district for storm-related things, or having to pay for a large deductible that you're having to address. And I think the big question is, well, what does this mean for the taxpayers of Harwich? So here's the way to kind of break it down using the tax rate guide that was provided in last year's warrant. If we presume for the moment that that you have a $300,000 assessed property in the town of Harwich, to raise $100,000 for the school district to fund these two things, it would be a one-time tax in these two things combined, but a one-time tax of $6 per household, which would break down to be $4.50 to have mandated handicapped accessible bathrooms at the stadium field, and $1.50 to fund a stabilization account to allow the school district to address unforeseen issues like storm-related damage. Again, and it's a one-time thing. This is a debt exclusion. It's not something that compounds. So it's $6 and it doesn't show up on taxes the following year for a $300,000 assessment. It's pretty small in the global scheme of things. And, so just to kind of understand the math of it and what it really means for any individual taxpayer.
Thank you for putting that into a very nice, concise $6 of paying for a bathroom. Put a little charge outside of the porta potties, maybe.
And it would save the school district from paying over $5,000 each school year to rent porta potties at the stadium that aren't handicapped accessible. So it's something that really makes good fiscal sense for all. And these are mandated, so we can say we're, if for whatever reason people decide not to fund them, when they close out the building project in the next few months and the ADA assessment of the facility comes through, we'll get dinged on not having handicapped accessible bathrooms, and we'll be forced to put in handicapped accessible bathrooms. So
It's a vicious circle.
Got
All
it.
right.
That would
Any
be-
questions on the debt exclusion? In other words, vote yes. Please. All right, we will move into subcommittee reports, and we have first readings on several policies. Would the policy subcommittee like to do this, or would you like me to push through this?
You want to push, and I will ad lib?
Sure. Tag team there.
Okay.
All right, so the first is policy AC, which is the non-discrimination policy. We have the red line version, which shows that we added Monomoy Regional School District, and then a couple of additional categories of what there will be non-discrimination against. I'm sorry, let me back up and say that all of these red line policies and draft policies are posted on the website in the policy section of, under the school committee tab. I can't remember what it's called, but I think it's draft policies underneath the policy. So we are not reading all of these because they are posted on our website. And if you have any questions, you can always contact the superintendent's office. So, policy AC, non-discrimination, a couple of additions that are legal requirements. Yes?
Exactly. A couple additions that were legal requirements are the 4 red items in section 6, age, genetic information, ancestry, and military status. And then also, as usual, we were adding adopted and revised to all the policies that we've been going through this year. So the adopted and revised is added to this policy. We also added Monomoy Regional School District on this policy, the wording, and then, like I said, the words in red.
Any questions on
Simply it.
policy AC? And again, this is our first reading, so we are reading them, and then we will vote on them at our next meeting. So any questions, we can always have additional at that next meeting. Policy ADC for tobacco use on school premises. Ms. Long.
Again, policy ADC, the tobacco use on school premises. The changes in red is reflected on your paper. We added a comma in the second line. And let's see, we also have the JICH, not the JICG, should be titled alcohol, tobacco, nicotine, and drug use by students.
No,
Page
that's
2,
what-
second paragraph.
No.
Oh, sorry, I'm moving on to JICH. The only thing I have for ABC is changes in red. I apologize.
Which it looks like it's in adding in the different tobacco and nicotine products, again mandated by
Yes.
law.
Yes.
Okay, so we move on to
Oh,
policy.
and that also date adopted and revised.
Thank you, yes. We move on to policy EFC, free and reduced price food services. Ms. Long.
For policy EFC, free and reduced price food services, we removed, the red paragraph with a link from state guidelines. Oh, excuse me, we added it. And put in approve this instead of will approve, and then again, the adopted revised.
Any questions on EFC? All right, we move on to the non-existent policy that we, IHA, Basic Instructional Program. Ms. Long.
Well, as you can see, it's all in red. We added the Monomoy Regional School District to that, the language from MASC, and let's see, I'll list it.
Is this another policy required by law? Or a good practice to have? So this is policy we're adding into our manual because it's a good practice to have.
Correct, and we've only have here language that's required by law in this policy. We would have to review the program of studies, like we did with the wellness policy subcommittee, if we wanted to elaborate any more on this policy, other than how it stands currently.
Any questions so far on IHA?
No.
Moving on to IHAI. Ms. Long.
IHIA is another, AI is another that doesn't currently exist. We added Monomoy Regional School District to it, obviously. Occupational education, it was on the MASC list, and that was why we had added this one. And it was a suggestion by Melissa to add this policy.
For legal or good practice?
This is good practice.
Good practice. Any questions on occupational education?
Sharon, did you want to add anything to that one?
No, there's more emphasis now with the world of work, and this was basically to address the world of work.
Okay, thank you. And the final policy for this evening is IHAMA.
Formerly known as IHAMBA.
So
Should I
we
read the B?
re-lettered this policy.
And
it's just
it's
the-
also per MASC, added Monomoy Regional School District, added adopted and revised.
And this policy is parental notification relative to sex education.
I'm sorry, I thought you'd said that out loud, I
I
apologize.
was on the other ones, I probably.
It's okay.
So this one has no changes other than filing letters and the district added.
Correct.
So you don't have any questions on that one. I'm not allowed to have any questions on that one. All right, so again, this is the first reading for those policies. Please go to our website if you're interested to look at the changes. You will find the redline version that we're looking at as well as the draft. And if any questions, contact, and we will look to vote on those at our next meeting. Best subcommittee report ever. Next up is superintendent's report.
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
I know exactly, this is what everybody's been waiting for tonight. So I will promise you this, my superintendent report will be a rant that Dennis Miller would be proud to have, and a thank you. So to begin my rant, and this will be completely interactive too. So to begin my rant, so we went to the voter forum for the town of Harwich, and the town manager presented sort of an overview of his budget. Superintendent of Cape Tech presented an overview of his budget. We presented an overview of our budget. I got this distinct feeling that we were told again and again and again that the school district really needs to focus on its budget and addressing things, and we do, and I'll share what I shared at that meeting and sort of the math of it, because this is going to be a math exercise. That one's for you, Donna, today, which is why we've got all the numbers projected up there. So Terry was there with me. So I think the town budget is roughly a what % increase?
I believe 7% was the number given.
Okay. Cape Tech?
I'd have to have help with that. I think 6%.
Yeah, it was like six something.
Rounding off.
Ours is just over 4%, but because we're using reserves, our assessment is 3.25 for Harwich. So I think we were the least of all of the budgets but you didn't walk out of that with this warm and fuzzy feeling that we were having the least percent increase. You would have thought that it was the exact opposite, which I worry when it comes to support. And that's where we're gonna go next when we go to the screen. So, my school committee member to my left shot me an email, wanting me to talk about school choice numbers, because there was something in the Wicked Local that an article that said choice tuition helps offset NOSIT assessments, and I thought it was a really interesting way to sort of spin it. And in it, I think Sharon was right to be concerned. It says the largest number of choice students are from Harwich, and there's 85 students from Harwich at NOSIT, and that's something we want to see change. But just to kind of go back here, and I know last time we met, Sharon and I were going back and forth a little bit on school choice and what it means. So if you go into your packets that I've given you, there's a graph that has sort of NOSIT, how many students that are coming in, and we'll talk about how many of our students are going out to NOSIT.
Which graph do we look
So there's a graph that says NOSIT school choice enrollment trends.
Thank you.
So this is interactive. Have we got to this graph, everybody?
Getting there.
Come on, Molly.
Can I hold it up this way?
Okay. We're there. Yeah.
Got it.
All right. So, so, are we there, Ms. Richardson? Okay, so Ms. Richardson, what's the general trend over the last decade for school choice students at NOSIT?
Oh, interesting. Oh. Well,
It's the blue bars.
right, yeah.
I don't think those
Well,
two sit together over there.
they aren't as high as,
Well, no, they've almost doubled over the last decade, from about 151 students to 300 students that are coming in through choice. So let's go through a quick math exercise on this one. 300 students, they're a 6 through 12, so 300 students, divide 300 by 7 grade levels. That's 43 students per grade level. And, so if you think about it, if you've got 18 students that you're adding, if this were Monomoy and we were adding, let's say, a 6th grade classroom with 18 students, we add that classroom, we've got a teacher's salary, which is going to be roughly $55,000. Usually, and on average in this school district, and I suspect NOSIT's the same on average, for every classroom you've got, there's a teaching assistant that's supporting that. So there's another $25,000 salary there. You'll have 2 health plans. More often than not, they're family health plans, which, as we've found, as we go through contract negotiations and everything, will run you about $20,000 each. So your personnel costs for one classroom is roughly $120,000. 18 students times $5,000 brings in 90,000 students. So you say, how much money are you bringing into your school district for each classroom? And you do, well, we're losing $30,000 per classroom. And that's sort of philosophically how, since I've been here, I've been trying to steer us away from filling classrooms with school choice students. And there's a lot of great reasons why families would want to come here. I mean, if you look at the presentation that Mary had, and just the positive trends that we've seen, there's a lot of really good news about the school district, but we're trying to be really selective about making sure that we're managing our taxpayers' funds well. So I just found it odd when when the article says school choice tuition helps offset NOSIT's assessments, but Nauset's per pupil spending and their assessments are tremendous, thousands of dollars, per pupil more than ours, in part because they have to offset the costs for all of the school choice students. And, so that kind of gets buried. It doesn't, sort of come out in the story, but that's a reality of this. And it's just sort of a different philosophical track that two school districts are taking on this. So now to go really get into the math on it, because Sharon wanted to know, well, let's look at the 85 students and, where are they, who are they, yada, yada, yada. So we have the big sheet. And this tracks all of the kids at each grade level. And, so the top section are students who we are not financially responsible for, because these are families that have chosen to homeschool or send their child to a parochial school or a private school. And then you'll see.
They're not included in the foundation.
They're not included in the foundation enrollment. And you'll also see a line there for Cape Tech. Those students aren't included in the foundation enrollment because they assess the town of Harwich and the town of Chatham for their students. But everybody below that is included in the foundation enrollment. So students that are going to charter school or students that are going out through school choice. And then you've got the line in blue down towards the bottom that are the students from Harwich and Chatham that are attending Monomoy. So those are the ones that we own. So we'll start with a quick little math piece on the bottom. And this is sort of this is a concern I raised at the meeting. If you look at the box that is sort of light green, we see that that's the percentage of students that are Chatham. So we've got 29, if we look at grade 9, 10, 11, and 12, we've got 29%, 24%, 34%, 31%. So that block of those 4 years of students, they average out over those 4 years, 29.5% of the students in our grades 9 through 12 are coming from Chatham. Now, if we go look at the dark blue on the far end, if we look at kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, we've got 21%, 28%, 26%, 28%. That block of 4 years averages 25.75%. The difference between those is 3.75%, or roughly 1% per year. So what's going to happen as we move forward here? We're going to see a larger percentage of Chatham students are going to be aging out of the system. They're going to be graduating. And we've got a smaller number of Chatham students. We don't see Chatham going away, and that's a myth here, but we see a slight shift each year from Chatham towards Harwich. And what that's going to do to our budget when we go to present it each year in Harwich, before any other change, the minimum required contribution, when we do this calculation just like it did this year, before any budget change, the minimum required contribution increased for Harwich by $450,000, which was about 1.5%. And we keep hearing this, increases have to be under 2%. But without anything happening, there was a 1.5% increase just by this slight shift from Harwich to Chatham. And that is going to be a reality and a challenge that we're going to continue to see over the next several years. So, so that's something that we have to think about, and that the town of Harwich needs to keep in mind, that it's tough to go and say, I think it's tough for any municipal organization and say, we want you to keep your budget under 2% and to keep it level staffed and to keep it level serviced. But when you have this other little enrollment shift causing 1.5% of that 2% to kind of erode before anything else, we're going to see some challenges there, and and I was just sharing, we need to kind of keep that in the back of our minds. And now for the good news and the cautionary tale. So if we look at the 85 students that are going to Nauset, and let's look at the Nauset trend. So that's this. I had Jim just sort of color code these, and we're going to look 12th grade down to 6th grade. And we have Miss Richardson, former math teacher, who will help us with the math on this. So,
First, they gotta find the map.
So what might be useful for you is if you go and circle what's on your paper, if you circle that 14 and 25. So for our 12th graders, how many 12th graders have headed out to Nauset? 14 and 25 is? 39. So the pink box is 39. And then we go to the 11th graders, 12 and 15. 12 and 15 is 27. And then we go to the light green box. 8 and 14 is 22. And then we get to the orange box, 30 and 9, which is 39. Now, some of you should be saying, what happened to 9th grade? This is part of the cautionary tale. So before we talk about 9th grade, let's look at 9th grade and go from 9th grade all the way down to 6th grade. So 9th grade is 39. Now we go to 8th grade. 8th grade is 7 and 12, which is 19. And we go to 7th grade, which is 18 and 2, which is 20. And we go to some really awesome news. 3 and 3, I can do my ciphering, that would be 6. Okay, so where we hemorrhage students traditionally is in the transition from 5th to 6th grade. In 5th to 6th grade, how many students did we lose this past year to Nauset? 6 kids, okay? So if we look back and say, and then we lose kids to Nauset in the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade is where we lose kids. So if we look at the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade, you look at that number and you go, 39? And it's fair to say, what happened? Nothing happened this year. We weren't seeing an exodus from 8th to 9th grade to Nauset. What we need to do is we need to go and back up 3 years, or back up 4 years. So if we're going to go all the way over to the pink again here, to that 14 and 25. The 14 and 25, if you recall, that's a year you had a parent, Joe Sandoval, come before you and talking about some of the cuts that were proposed because of some budget fiasco that happened in Harwich. And Joe Sandoval pulled his son out of here along with a number of parents. And we saw 39 students go that year. Those students at the time, that cohort's now seniors. They were heading into 9th grade that year. So that 14 and 25, those were our 8th graders transitioning into 9th grade. That 30 and 9 were our 5th graders transitioning into 6th graders. So we saw, if you look at the difference between that year and the year that followed it, 32 families fled the school district because of financial uncertainty. 32 families, $5,000 apiece, that's $160,000 went out the door because families didn't feel supported. But if you look at what we've done and how the district has recovered from that, we've dropped it down from 39 families heading out the door to 6.
6, yeah.
And, so when the newspaper article is looking at it, and it's like, well, the biggest exodus, heading to Nauset's Harwich, there's actually not a lot of kids heading out these days compared to what it was. There's some really good news. I mean, people are really starting to see that the results that, that Sam and Mary were talking about, or that, that Robin's been talking about when she did her presentation, and that Mark will be talking about, there's really great news happening here. And some of what we're seeing is a hiccup from a lack of support that happened a few budget years ago, that is the cautionary tale here, that it's like I would prefer us not to keep going back to, we have this budget hiccup, exodus, and then the school district has to go and build confidence back and get it back to very few families leaving us. But so I want to emphasize that that there's really good news in the school choice out, even though it really doesn't show up as it shows up as the biggest outflow is from or to Nauset comes from the town of Harwich. If you look at it, last year there were only 3 kids that wanted to go to Nauset Middle School, I think I shared with this with this group. We actually had more families from Nauset looking at coming back or coming here to the high school than we saw families looking out. So we're really heading in a positive direction, but we don't want to go. It's one of those things I hope we can learn from our past as a school committee and as a selectman, board of selectmen, and a finance committee, that supporting the schools saves us money in the long haul, and it helps us build a community where families want to be. And I really appreciate some of the words that Terry shared at the end of this voter forum, because I think some of the concern that has been raised is that it's expensive and families are fleeing. But I think what you see is, if you build strong schools, families will come to you. And that's what we're really starting to see, is that our families are staying with us because of the quality of the program that we've got. And if we want to keep families looking at both Harwich and Chatham as places to be, making sure the schools are strong is important.
Scott, just as an add, and you might have to help me with the number, but I think Monday morning during that video play as to the health of the Harwich municipal services, as I looked at, seeing that we're on the topic of Nauset and some youngsters who went for several reasons years ago, for the bang for your buck, as far as cost per student in the Monomoy region versus the cost per student at Nauset, is somewhere we need to increase our budget to match what Nauset is spending out, to the tune of, and help me out, Scott, I think it's either $3 or $3.5 million. So our budget combined with Chatham is somewhere around $35 million. It would be $3+ million more. So I think we're getting a tremendous value from our taxpayers giving us this money to accomplish what's going on right here. So a lot of data, and unfortunately it gets all fogged over, but we have a story to tell, and unfortunately this is our role, to be continued to tell that story whenever we have a chance to.
I'll move backwards, because from the last to the beginning of what you said. This data is something that I wasn't aware of, and I would be surprised if others were aware of this. This is hugely helpful to have data like this, because it shows a pattern rather than having opinions on things. So I think this is really helpful if any of those people in the Finance Committee or Selectmen are interested in looking at it. Going further back, most of us have attended the meetings where we first present our budgets to the Selectmen. And for a number of years, if you sat there and you listened to our budget being presented, and generally the tech school is presented right after, there are comments that aren't particularly positive when we present ours, and when the tech school presents theirs, it's all glowing. And I've asked people about what that's all about, and all I get back is the information that they're asking for much smaller amount of money. So when they have these increases that are above ours, which is almost always the case, they don't mind it so much. But to me, I think that when we were regionalized, the feeling of losing power and control over what the school's decision-making brought out some of that. And I think we're seeing some of that. The 1.5% that you're talking about increase for Harwich, that's huge, huge, because that you don't find in any other department, that the library or anything else is having to deal with that type of increase. So, I really compliment you for bringing all this data to us, because this is something we need to share. Thanks.
Mr. Russell?
Same topic, as I usually do. I spoke out of turn Tuesday morning at the joint grouping.
It's not the first time.
And I know it comes with age, and no one's going to say stop.
Go ahead, Mr. Russell.
In this whole theme and the stress and the pull and the tug for 6 months every year for a lot of years of trying to get a budget that's palatable to both towns, it's a challenge, especially when you have 8 of us and the understanding level year after year with new people coming and going. I made the suggestion, along with an attempt to try to get some knowledge base for all of us, raised a tad bit, and also in the creation of personal contact by creating a little bit further trust every year. I suggested, and that's where, because you folks weren't there, that in some quiet time in the summer, July or August, when the budget has already passed, we invite here, this would make a good forum, this particular site, we would invite the cross-section of the Howard select person and 1 or 2 members of their board, the chairman of their finance committee, their town manager, their town accountant, with a comparable number of us to sit at 9 or 10 in the morning till 2 or 3 with some sandwiches, and allow Scott to have the opportunity to review in detail with time to question or I don't get it, and at the same time allow Chris and their folks to go over their 19 municipal budget and what the health of that reflects, and then to project outward, which I think Scott just did, what 20 looks like, along with the continual structural deficit in the form of that assessment that's going to happen because of the slight decrease in our partner school system, Chatham, with a slight increase towards the kids coming to us from Howard. So somehow or other, whether it's Scott or the board in total would have to say, that's the craziest idea Daria came up with, but I have more. Or say, let's give it a try, because it's worth it. All it is time, and out of that comes trust. People walk away saying, I now kind of know the new members. They too have 2 new members joining them, and even though they may be veterans, and we will be. So at some point of this time, Madam Chair, at some point in mid to late July where we could carve out some time, I think it would be worth a formal invitation to our colleagues from Howard.
And just to add to that, Chair, I think we should throw in a few videos from no, I mean that. I mean, to let them see what's actually happened beyond
Sure. Yeah.
the dollar sign.
I think it's a good idea, Mr. Russell.
Yes.
Anything else, Mr. Carpenter?
Well, that was my rant, and then I said that I was going to end with a thank you. So I would like to just formally express a thank you to the 10 moms that I work with in central office who, I guess a week ago Monday, I think words coming out of one of their mouths was, pain is your body's messenger. But they did motivate me to get to the hospital and get things taken care of, so that I'm here today. So thank you, ladies. I appreciate the badgering that sometimes I need.
Badger away. All right, any other questions for Mr. Carpenter? All right, we will move on to we have no action items, therefore our only action is to adjourn. We're going to adjourn our regular business meeting, and then we will take a break and then re-adjourn for come back into order for a workshop. So I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn our business meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're not allowed. We are adjourning at 8:52 PM. It was unanimous.